Scientists have given an answer on how the iceberg sank the unsinkable Titanic. Any other day and the iceberg would have been a fraction of its troublesome size. Any other hour and it would have been hundreds of feet away. And when it collided with the cruise ship, the 3-year-old chunk of ice had only a few weeks to live. Snowfall creates a beautiful ballet between the characteristics of water. Like dominoes, snowflakes tumble to the ground. Growing snowflakes will float as long as they are lighter than air. The structure will, however, give way to gravity and fall as soon as one more crystal passes the critical number. Snow tends to fall in areas where other snow has already fallen. And, while each snowflake is unique, they aren't as unique as we've been told. They begin as spheres and grow tendrils to diffuse heat. Cold temperatures produce flakes that resemble bullets or needles. Extra cold weather produces the classic shape of a 6-sided prism or even the fern-like crystal with 6 radiating branches. The snow that fell one day, 15,000 years ago, on Greenland's frozen ice sheets most likely took the appearance of this fern-like snow. A layer of ice 2 miles thick had already been placed over the landmass. The new flakes eventually sank behind the ice, out of sight from the sun, and shrank in size by a third due to pressure. According to geology, thousands of years have passed with little change. Snowflakes turned into dense glacial ice as they moved quickly, at about 4 miles per year, toward Greenland's west coast. Ice weakens as it approaches the coast because enormous walls of ice flake just off the glacier and fall into the ocean every day, especially in the summer. Ocean icebergs are created in this way. However, one specific iceberg that sank in the summer of 1909 would go down in history as a notorious incident. This iceberg, which has been there for too little time to have a name, was more than 2 miles wide and 100 feet tall when it was first formed. The largest steamer ever created, which was also created in the summer of 1909, would be dwarfed by it. That steamer, the Titanic, was designed with a desire for size and luxury that was competitive. The largest and easily the most luxurious passenger liner ever to float, it would be enormous. It was a triplet that took 3 years to build, planned by the White Star Line with the Olympic, 1911, and the somewhat larger Britannic as sister ships, 1915. They were built with elaborate staterooms and luxurious Victorian facilities to transport the famous, wealthy, and well-connected across the Atlantic. A guest could access an exclusive dining room, oak-paneled meeting rooms, a Turkish bath, a saltwater swimming pool, gigantic bay windows, and a roaming orchestra for the Titanic's highest expensive ticket, which is almost $60,000 in today's currency. All of these amenities proved to be of short duration. Early in 1912, the ship moved out of a dry dock in Northern Ireland. Before heading west for New York, it made stops in Cherbourg, France, and Queenstown, Ireland, to pick up passengers. When full, the manifest held little over 2,200 people, with more than a third being crew. However, 4 days into the ship's first transatlantic voyage, following the vessel's infamous run-in with ice, all but 710 would end up floating lifeless on the surface or, worse, pulled deep into the ocean. At the time, people had little knowledge of iceberg behavior outside of the fact that most of them melted somewhere north of the Arctic Circle. Practical information on the deviation of the compass. Author John Thomas Towson, a scientist interested in ship navigation, noted in 1857 that icebergs were similar to, and no softer than, rocks produced over millennia by time and pressure. Icebergs posed an existential threat to the wooden hulls of 19th-century ships, and Towson was aware of this. He claimed that steel hulls were unbeatable, but this was based more on theory than on experience. The U.S. Coast Guard gave the eastern channel of the Grand Banks in eastern Newfoundland the moniker Iceberg Alley. In 1912, due to the unusually high volume of icebergs that passed through the area on their way south, The icy mass bobbed and weaved in the Arctic waters for 3 years. It traveled north at one point and spent the summer of 1910 further north. Then it encountered the Labrador Current, which transports cold water south. The majority of icebergs melt in their first year. Only a few of the last 3 are left because the Labrador Current eventually meets the warm waters of the Gulf Stream, acting as an oceanic microwave. Only 1% of Northern Hemisphere icebergs make it through this desert zone, and only 1 in a few thousand makes it to 41 degrees north, the very same latitude as New York City and also directly in the path of transatlantic ships. When the Titanic sank back in 1912, it plunged 2.5 miles and instantly hit the seafloor at over 30 miles per hour. The ship's ocean grave was so incredibly remote that its location remained unknown until 1985, when a team using government-developed submarines and deepwater craft was able to take some blurry photographs. It took 73 years, nearly an entire human lifespan, to discover the most illustrious and fascinating shipwreck of all time. According to some estimates, more icebergs float around today than during the Titanic's era, owing to warmer water, which causes more frequent glacier calving. But no iceberg will ever be as truly famous as this one.